Today on Between the Lines, the man who wrote the book that is known as the most trusted source on leadership, James Kouzes. I'm Barry Kibrick. James, along with his co-author Barry Posner, has written what is celebrated throughout the world as the definitive book on becoming a leader. With nearly 2 million copies sold, Jim joins us now with his 4th edition of the Leadership Challenge, a guide that inspires and encourages the heart so that we all may embark on a lifetime journey of significance and personal success.
I'm a writer today because I was a reader when I was 11 years old, and it was...
You do not need to prove your state of happiness to anybody.
Most of these speeches were as much as a month in preparation.
Characters, the heroes in this book, are seekers of truth in a story that involves a lot of corruption.
You don't get a chance to really talk about what's real, and it's the purpose for me.
Jim, what a pleasure it is to have you on Between the Lines. I was just telling you, every time I would have somebody with a business book on, there's almost none that doesn't reference the Leadership Challenge. So I think this is an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my honor. We feel very blessed. Thank you.
Well, let me start, though, Jim, by letting people know that this really isn't a business book. I really think it's important for people to know that. This is really a leadership book on how to benefit your own self, how to lead with your own philosophy, how to, well, I want to read your words. It's getting extraordinary things done, the capacity to guide others to places they've never been before, and to strengthen your abilities and uplift your spirit.
Well, to us, my co-author Barry Posner and me, leadership is everyone's business. It isn't the private reserve of a few charismatic men and women or corporate CEOs or presidents of countries. It is really something you see in young people, from 8-year-old Girl Scouts to 80-year-old volunteers in the community who lead efforts to bring about some kind of significant change. So it really is something we feel very strongly. It is a set of skills and practices that apply to any of us.
You say, Jim, the first place to look for leadership is in yourself. And then you're clever enough to put a daily challenge for all. And every time I do these types of books, I want the viewers to know that these are challenges. You have to accept them, though. You have to grow, and you have to look within.
Yeah. Well, if I may tell you a story from Max Dupree. Max Dupree is the former CEO of Herman Miller Corporation, the furniture manufacturer. And Max tells this beautiful story about when his granddaughter Zoe, which is the Greek word for life, was first born, and she was born premature, and she did not stand a chance more than 10% of surviving 3 days, he was told. And so he wanted to get involved in her care, and we're happy to say today she's in her 20s and doing very well. But when he went to first visitors, she wasn't that way, and Max asked what he could do, and a wise and caring nurse told him that he should come to the hospital every day and rub Zoe's arms and her legs and her body with the tip of his finger. And as he caressed her, as the grandfather, he should tell her how much he loved her. And she said, because she has to be able to connect your voice to your touch. Oh, what a story. And Max went on to say, you know, Nurse Ruth was doing the absolute right thing for Zoe and for me as a grandparent to feel involved, but without realizing it, she was giving me the best possible lesson for the work of a leader. To become a leader, one need always connect one's voice to one's touch. But there is a prior task, finding one's voice in the first place. And I think that says it all.
Will you, and again, I want people to really get it out of their minds that this is a business book, because the thing that you tell us, in fact, to do, to find that voice, is this deep soul searching, because we probably could see these leadership abilities if we look back and search deeply, soulfully, but without punishing ourselves when we look back. But you want us to look back with a deep soul connection.
Yeah. It's important that we look back into what we've done really well. That's how we began our research, Barry, was asking people to look at times when they'd done their best as a leader. And people from college students to young adults in the workplace to people who have been in executive positions for many, many years. And they would review their cases of past performance and tell us these stories, which became our basis for then analyzing what the factors were that contributed to that. And everybody has a story. That was kind of the first amazing thing. When asked, everybody has a story. If I were to ask you to think about when you put this show together and how that came about and what you had to do, my guess is that the patterns would seem very similar to what others have done as well. So it is something that with enough soul searching we can find in ourselves there. When we're operating at our best as leaders, we have some things that we do and they're shared by others who do the same kind of leadership practice.
You say in the book, the abundance of challenges, they're unlimited. We can find the challenge to gear ourselves up and to take this leadership seriously and responsibly. You say, though, it's not the issue of the challenge, it's how we respond to it that matters. A theme I've used in previous shows and one that comes out throughout this book, because in every life, in every business, in every family, in every organization, challenges, that's the name of the game, how you're going to respond.
One of the people we interviewed said, adversity introduces you to yourself, which is so important when you put that together with finding your voice. When you encounter adversity, you want to know as a constituent that the leader is clear about their character, their values and beliefs. Well, excuse me, Barry, we have to put this challenge on hold for a few minutes because I have to go out and build my character. Adversity introduces us to the character we've already developed over those years and exposes those values and beliefs. And that's what we base our actions upon, or should at any rate, to be consistent with values and beliefs, to connect our voice and our touch.
You let us know that great leaders are not necessarily born. They have to develop and work. And you also let us know that they're not rare. The fact of the matter is, and I love this about the book, is that the fact is we do great work all the time. That's how the society survives. We have great leaders doing great things, and they're probably just your neighbor, your average Joe. But you do give us a little bit of a guideline of what we should pay attention to. You call them the 5 practices. As I said to you earlier, each practice we can spend a show on. So I just want to take a note that I found of particular interest and expound on it for us. The 5 practices are model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. My favorite one. We'll start at the top though. Model the way. In this case, you want us, as you said before, clarify our values. That's the important thing. And the words and the deeds must be consistent.
Yeah, model is 2 things. It's about first being clear about what we value and believe in. It's finding our voice, as Max Dupree so eloquently put it. And then it's making sure that when we take action, we align our actions with our words. It's practice what you preach, put your money where your mouth is, walk the talk, all those familiar phrases. And model is essentially those 2 things. And it's the fundamental foundation. It's what people look to when they're determining whether we have that fundamental character, whether we are someone who can be considered credible as a leader.
Next you have, and I don't believe these are in any particular order, shared vision. They must have intimate knowledge of people's dreams, hopes, aspirations, visions, and values. But you also give us a caution, and I'll read that as well, that shared values should never be used as an excuse for the suppression of dissent. So tell us how the shared values and a little bit of the warning.
Well, Inspire a Shared Vision, again, is a combination of both the leader's voice and the constituent's voice. Leaders have to be forward-looking. They need to look into the future and make sure that we understand what's coming, whether it's political, economic, social, personal, and then paint a picture of it in such a way that we want to move towards that new future. So it's both a personal looking ahead, but then looking at what all of us as constituents want and painting that, because if I can't see myself in the picture, I'm not going to want to get on board. But the dilemma around shared values and shared vision is once we have consensus on something, we may have blinders on to other things that might be coming in our direction. Just one example, if you take the automotive industry back before the Japanese were major competitors, they were blindsided by the issue of quality, thinking that if we build these cars that Americans want that are big and gas guzzling and maybe they aren't so reliable, but nobody really cares about that because we're going to buy a new car every couple of years. Then the Japanese came along with high quality cars that were a bit more fuel efficient. They were blindsided. And so it's important that we also stay open to hearing other voices, other trends, other things that are happening so that we are not so focused that we don't see other possibilities.
Seeing those other possibilities, I believe, come out of this third one, which is challenging the process. I think that's one of the ways we open up our eyes as well. What is it? If it's, there was that great line, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah. And someone once said, if it's not broke, break it. So that's, again, challenging the process does that for us, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you're going to have a vision of the future that's new and distinctive, and it requires change. It requires doing things differently than we do them today. And so consequently, I have to be innovative and creative and challenge the core processes. As one of our interviewees put it, be an enzyme, be a catalytic agent for change. And we need to search then for new opportunities to introduce new and different ways of doing things, regardless of what our profession, our industry, our community might be. And then we also need to make sure that in doing so, we don't punish people for making the inevitable mistakes they make when they try something new, because none of us ever got anything right the first time. So we got to learn. We develop a learning attitude, and leaders promote learning and feedback so that people can understand where they made a mistake, what they can do differently.
And you also are very clear to not say to make change just for change's sake or to lead for lead's sake. You have to really have this soul-searching aspect to your life so that you're really leading with the right values for the right things.
Yeah, challenge for its own sake can be rather irritating. Oh, let's do this and let's do that. It's sort of like putting on new clothing just to try them on in the store to see what they look like. When you're talking about leadership, it's challenge for a purpose. For what purpose? And so we can't just challenge the process devoid of some common vision, some shared purpose.
Fourth in the 5 principles, enabling others to act. Do not hoard power. Give it away as long as it's founded on trust.
The fundamental glue that holds us all together is trust. And leaders who have the interpersonal competence to build trusting relationships and build collaborative relationships are far more successful than those who destroy relationships. The number one item in we have an assessment instrument called the Leadership Practices Inventory. And the single most important item, the most predictive of whether somebody will be successful at leading or not, is the statement, treats others with dignity and respect. The more people agree that that's true about that person, the more likely they are to be successful as a leader.
That one is so obvious and so ignored. It is the biggest dichotomy I'm aware of. I'm leveling with you in the workforce because it's not even counterintuitive. If it was counterintuitive, sometimes counterintuitive stuff I could understand being difficult. It's just so natural. It's biblical almost. It's the golden rule, isn't it?
It's a golden rule. And yet you see it violated so many times when people assume, well, I'm the boss, and if you don't agree with me, I have the right to insult you. So it's violated all the time. Colleagues of ours, Fernando Arroy's, Claudio Fernandez Arroy's, who is a partner in Egon Zehnder International, an international search firm, did some work globally, and he found that, and this is one of those things that initially may be counterintuitive, but again makes sense. He found that those executives who are high on intelligence, but low on this ability to build trusting relationships with other people, are actually not only less effective or more likely to create failure than success. Only those executives who are high on emotional intelligence, the ability to build good relationships with others, and have great experience are successful. IQ does not predict whether somebody will be successful or not. It really is this emotional equation.
Which leads then to the favorite one. It is, you see how, talk about how these all lead in there. That is encourage the heart, what motivates the individual. Find out what that is. The great person theory of leadership is wrong because there are so many heroes. So when you're encouraging the heart of others, that's how they then give back to you way beyond what you even imagine sometimes. I see people rise to the occasion and then exceed what I wanted from them because I'm hoping that I'm reaching them in that manner.
Oh yeah. Another one of the people we interviewed, Erwin Fetterman, who's now at Monolithic Memories, it's a venture firm, commented to us, he said, "We will work harder and more effectively for people we like, and we will like them in direct proportion to how they make us feel."
Can I go into your next line? You're leading me, Jim. Let me. Who's better to lead than the man who wrote the Leadership Challenge? You use those words, and I starred them so many times. What people really want to hear is not simply the leader's vision. They want to hear about their own aspirations. That's what you're really. What is leadership? But bringing out the best in everyone else's aspirations, what they feel is going to benefit themselves and society as they see it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When we're leading others, there's kind of a built-in assumption, I think, to a lot of what people, the mythology about leadership, that leaders are people who go off and they get inspired and they come down from the mountain and they deliver the tablets and people follow them because they know the truth. But if you listen very carefully between the lines, to steal your
I wish I did have a patent on that, but I don't, or a trademark at least, but I don't.
So between those lines, these are the best leaders are listening very carefully to what others are saying, and understanding them and being able to play them back, so that we say, oh, yeah, that's what I meant. That's where I want to go. You heard me.
Well, the underpinning philosophy of this entire book is that empathy. Mm-hmm. It is to be empathetic, to truly step outside of yourself. That's truly, if there's a challenge to being a leader, it's that ability to do that.
Yeah, it is the greatest challenge because when we're made to be so important, we have big titles, and leadership is often associated with those things, even though we consider it everyone's business. And because we become so self-important, we think that we somehow do know the truth. And the best leaders are the most humble. They're people who understand that I got to be where I am because I treated other people with dignity and respect. I listened to them, not because I have a patent on the truth, not because I know everything, but because I was able to understand what other people want and articulate it in such a way that it made sense.
I had literally one of the great leaders, who's also a great leadership writer, John Wooden, on my show, the great coach at UCLA. And I remember on his pyramid, and I bring this up because of what you have in the book, he changed the word willingness on one of his cornerstones to enthusiasm. And I told you, we actually followed part of your course, which does do that. And I want to bring it out now, as our own station here followed some of your messages. That word came up a number of times, enthusiasm. Anyone can will themselves to do something, but to do it with enthusiasm, you say that's, when you actually use the challenging of the process, you say, do it with enthusiasm. That is such a key, important element.
Enthusiasm is another one of those very important ingredients that adds to a leader's credibility, believe it or not. If you have two people who are equally credible as leaders. The one with the more energy, the more enthusiasm, the ability to inspire others is just going to be more likely to be followed, because what does that energy say to us? You know, when somebody's enthusiastic, we like to say enthusiasm is infectious. You're enthusiastic about your dream, your aspiration, your vision. I'm more willing to say, well, if you're enthusiastic about it, then I should be too. I'll give it a shot. But if you deliver it in a way that's like somebody wrote a speech for you, it's boring, you don't deliver it with energy and enthusiasm, why should I get excited about it?
You know, another, I'll say, what would this be? Practical. Maybe something not as heady, but very practical in that regard, is when you're telling people to describe these visions, these values. I thought this was very important, and it is something that I never actually do. Not anymore, I tell you, but I never did. And you wanted those vision statements not to be so much words as to be pictures, so that they're literally painted so that people can see what those visions, values, and the culture is that you're trying to establish.
Our memories work in pictures. That's how we remember things. Feelings, senses. If I were to say to you, Barry, when I say Paris, France, what's the first thing that pops to your mind?
Right, it's Eiffel Tower, it's Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower, and then other people might say Louvre,
right,
or the Seine, or the Arc de Triomphe, or wine, good food, romance. What are those? They're physical places, they're images, they're senses. How many of us think of the square kilometers of the city of Paris or the budget for the city? We don't remember those things. It is about those sensations. So leaders, in order to help others to understand where it is we ought to be headed, what that future looks like, need to be able to paint a picture with words.
Jim, one of the things you really talk about, and you mentioned it before, is the ability to give people a chance to fail. And one of the things is that it seems paradoxical, you say, but the safer people feel, the more risks they'll take and the more mistakes they'll be willing to make. And just before, you mentioned genuineness. Show us how that all ties in.
Well, again, one of the important aspects of leading is learning. If we're going to fail because we're innovating, then what do? Blame people, punish people for making mistakes, or create a learning experience out of it. So in order for me to willingly want to take a risk, possibly fail, I need to feel safe. Not safe necessarily physically, but safe emotionally. And one way we do that is by turning it into a learning experience. But there's another important piece to all this, which has to do with the genuineness of a leader, the authenticity of a leader. If I'm doing this and it's clearly perceived that it's manipulative and I'm doing it for myself really, but I'm only trying to get you on my good side, and I am not being genuine. So genuineness, safety, trust, learning, they all come together as a way of interpersonally, we have to know that the leader really is being authentic. As leaders, what we articulate as what visions of the future are important to us as leaders, they have to be ones we are personally invested in, personally find compelling.
Jim, I know that when you sell nearly 2 million books, it's probably impossible for you to answer all the email that comes your way. But I want to direct people to the site, because so much can be gained by checking out your website. And if they do correspond, well, we'll leave it up to you to decide how you react. It's www.leadershipchallenge.com. It's all one word, as in the internet. www.leadershipchallenge.com. Right after that, in my book here, I put these big words that I saw you say over and over, sometimes just saying thank you. Sometimes that simple expression of gratitude to the people that you need to lead, to the people that you need to, sometimes lead is not even right, guide. Just saying thank you does so much.
The importance of showing your appreciation. You know, we as leaders only get things done because others give their full commitment and energy and enthusiasm and their skills and their talents. And I think the most important emotion we have as human beings is gratitude. And all leaders ought to feel very grateful that so many people were willing to put forth their energy to make something extraordinary happen. And you have to say thank you many times a day because of that.
Jim, I need to say thank you to you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, sir, so much for
pleasure.
sharing your wisdom with us in the Leadership Challenge. And I want to thank all of you for joining us. Now, before Jim leaves, I would like to leave you with these words from the Leadership Challenge. What we have discovered and rediscovered is that leadership is not the private reserve of a few charismatic men and women. It is a process ordinary people use when they are bringing forth the best from themselves and others. When the leader in everyone is liberated, extraordinary things happen. I'm Barry Kibrick. Bring forth the best in yourself and others. Read between the lines and liberate your internal leader so that you can make extraordinary things happen. Thank you so much, Jim.
My pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, want a DVD or transcript of our show, catch an episode online, or receive our weekly updates, go to www.klcs.org/BTL.